In my last video, I talked about Scaler 2 and how much I love using software that makes you get good results very quickly and in many ways lets the computer do a lot of the work for you. Over the years, I've had quite a lot of debates with people about whether or not this kind of software is good, for the future of music. And a lot of people will argue that, this isn't great because now it just means that anyone can come in and just there's going to be a lot of bad music. And I would always challenge that to say that, regardless of whether or not you have a lot of technical ability and you are an expert in music theory or you are an excellent pianist, the most important thing is your heart and your ear. If your heart is in it for the right reason and you've got a good ear of what works, it doesn't matter how technical you are. It's about what you wish to express. And for a lot of people, the technical barrier required to create music is very high. If you haven't got all of the time to put in to learn how to play a bass guitar or to learn how to play piano or learn theory or all of the specifics of creating synths yourself, I say use whatever you can to get good results quicker. And EZBass really is, in my opinion, the best plugin I've ever bought. It came out about a week and a half ago. It's a new plugin from Toontrack. When I saw it advertised, I was like, this is a plugin for me. A little bit of background. I love playing bass. I love working with bassists, and in particular, I've really got into playing bass over the past couple of years because I really fell in love with that kind of samba Latin bassline groups, like do 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 do. I thought, this really makes me move. This lights my heart on fire. But there is a lot of difficulty in playing rhythms like that because there's a lot of different articulations that together create that groove. And there's a lot of muting and stuff. And when I try and play these rhythms, my fingers just aren't hard enough yet, or I haven't practiced enough to be able to perform what I expect from the bass. And I end up with a lot of kind of ringing of notes underneath notes, and it ends up just being something that either doesn't sound quite like I want, or I end up having to edit things hugely in order just to have the space in between the notes. And long story short, I end up getting a little bit frustrated when I try and record bass lines because I know what I want, but I just can't necessarily do it. And, some ways I've hired session bassists or I've worked with friends who are great bassists, but I want to be able to do this all on my own, if I need to. So EZBass really revolutionized that for me because now I can do exactly what I want, and I can very quickly, without having to annoy somebody because they need to go and feed the meter and then they need to leave, I could spend as long as I want on nailing that bass line. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump in and show you a couple of cool ways that you can use EZBass in a variety of contexts. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to show you how easy it is to just draw in the chords on the EZBass and for you to then be able to figure out a bass line very quickly. So I've got some keys here that I've done that I know are G major 9 and B minor 9. And I know that they bounce back and forth between them and there's not much change. So what I could do is I could go onto EZBass here and I can add a groove. And I've already set the key, which I know is D minor. And this is a slightly slower way of doing something. I'm going to show you a quicker way afterwards. But I love this because it's very visual and I can see exactly what it is that I need to do. So because I know that the bass line is the same, for now I'm just going to make this 2 bars. In fact, let's just make it 1 bar because I know that the pattern is only 1 bar. So let's have a quick listen. Cool. So I can see that the piano chord changes there. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to press 3 to get up my scissor tool. And I can see that the chord changes there. Oh, sorry. I'm going to cut there. And I know if I go back here, if we know what chords we're doing, all we need to do is then just put them in. So we've got a G major 9 and a B minor 9. So I click on the first chord, and then I add edit chords, and I do G major. So G, and then the second one, I go B. And now EZBass has given us the most basic bass line you could have. All right, yeah, fantastic. But where EZBass really comes into its own is just the huge amount of rhythms that you can then apply to that melodic structure. So I'm actually just going to copy these out just so I got a little bit more to play with here. And then I'm going to highlight all the notes, and I'm going to press J to consolidate them. I could have shifted that, but okay, there we go. So now I've got a slightly longer pattern of the same two chords. And all I have to do is click it and go replace MIDI. And now I'm presented with a huge amount of rhythms that I could just apply to that. So I know that I want something Latin. So I'm going to go to my Latin folder, and I've already favorited a few of them. So again, let's listen to what we had. Not very interesting, really, is it? Let me bring those keys up a bit. If I now click on this and I replace MIDI and I go to my Latin folder and I pick this one, look what happens. It changes the MIDI for me with the same notes in that chord. And sometimes as well, because it knows what the chord are, it will add the 5th or the 7th or the 9th or the 11th, depending on the pattern. So depending on what your chords are and depending on when they change and how long they stay there, you get, even with the same pattern, like different results each time you try it. So let's try out this rhythm now. Super cool. And there's slightly more complex versions of that same kind of samba pattern. Really cool. And then you could go maybe into funk, and we get something with a little bit of slap. Super cool. And if I pick this one, for example, you can see that there's a variety of articulations in here. If I double click on the pattern and I go to the grid editor, you can see that these notes are in different colors. And these different colors mean that they are different articulations. Yellow is a percussive right hand. And you can see all of the articulations here. You've got the, by default, if you just draw notes in, it auto alternates between being a middle finger and an index finger, which is, you know, if you have a long row of patterns, that creates variation between them, which you don't usually get if you were to just draw a long pattern of notes on, say, like a contact bass. You could use ghost notes, harmonics, tapping, slap pop, ghost slap, percussive left hand. These are brilliant. And then you've also got up here the option to choose how you go between a note. So you can slide between them, or you can do a short grace note, which adds like a little... You can see here actually that there are, I think these are grace notes. My screen is so broken I can't even see up the top anymore. Yeah, there we go, like hammer-ons. So if I go back to here again, let's have a quick listen through. And then you could maybe bend between these two. Let's see what happens if I do that. So we'll do a slide. We'll try a slide. Quite cool. So yeah, that's a cool way that you can just quickly draw in a pattern and then fuck around with the pattern itself. So if, for example, if we were to then want to change just this chord, what you can do as well is you can change the MIDI for individual chords. So if I click up here, I'm replacing the MIDI for everything in the pattern. So let's pick this one. But say I just want to change these B minors, I can now go there and I can apply a different rhythm to just those guys. So let's find something which maybe looks a bit complex at the end. Let's see, what about this? Let's try that. Very cool. Right, so I'm just going to record in a quick pattern on Scaler using these chords I found in the Chill 3 section. Let's see if I can do this with the recording latency. Cool, so that should do. What I can now do is open up EZBass, and I can just drag, if I go to drums and keys, I can just drag the MIDI I've played there right onto here, and in theory, it should give us the right pattern. So if I zoom in there, oh, I need to change the key to B major. So let's say B major, I'll delete that again, and just drag this in, and let's pop that down there. And you'll notice it hasn't actually split it into the correct chords. This seems to happen when you use Scaler. I'll show you in a sec how well this works with EZKeys. But let's just have a quick listen to see what we've got. I should probably put the keys on as well, though, so we can hear them. let's replace the MIDI of this. I'm not sure how well it will work because I haven't split them into the correct chords, but if I go then to grooves and we replace MIDI, let's see what this sounds like. I mean, still very cool. And if I then did go in and I said, okay, well, I know what the chords that I'm playing are, a little bit more work, what we could do is we can just go in here and I can see that the first chord is the C minor 9. So cool. When does the chord change happen? Let's see. So it seems to happen there. In fact, if I don't replace the MIDI yet, why don't we just go back? I've got it here still, actually. I can just drag that on there. I can at least see where the chord changes are. So I can cut there, and I can cut there. Then I can cut there. In fact, what I could do as well is just go in and quantize all of these notes to be perfectly on the grid. So we'll do 16ths, and in theory now. Cool. So I know that each of those notes was a different chord, so I could just go in and now cut there. Let's go back to the grooves view. I use my little cutting tool to, oh, sorry, that's where the chord is. Cut, and then we'll do a cut there, cut there, cut there. Certain bits of software, or sometimes it will, using EZKeys, using Toontrack's own products, it will often just tell you what the chords are as well. But in this case, I know what they are thanks to having used Scaler. So I know that first one is a C sharp minor. Then we've got an F sharp minor, F sharp 9. So that will probably just be an F sharp. And then we've got a G sharp there. So where is the old G sharp? There we go. In fact, let's try it with F sharp. Oh, actually, no. Let's go for G sharp. Where are you? G sharp should be on this ring. There we go. So let's try that out first. In fact, let's try that as a G sharp minor then. So I could just copy these chords across now because I know that they are right. Let's just zoom in a bit. Take these first two ones. I know that this is a G sharp again. And then what are those last two? And then we got a C sharp and a G sharp again. So C sharp and a G sharp. And then the last time is the same as the first. And I can stretch that out to the full length. So now we have at least the chords written down here. I can see that it's an F sharp. Okay, so it's an F sharp major, and then we got a G sharp minor. So these do actually need to be minors. Replace, and we'll, and edit chords. We'll go for G sharp minor, and G sharp minor, G sharp minor, G sharp minor, and the last one again, G sharp minor. So now in theory, we've got all the correct chords. And because these chords are now telling EZBass what chord is at what section, when I now do the replace MIDI and try some other things, we're going to get a little bit more interest. So let's try. I really like the disco ones as well. Absolutely fabulous. EZBass works really well when you know the chords and you're using something like Scaler, or maybe you have just written a chord progression, you know what they are and you can go and draw them in. Or as I showed, you could just drag in the MIDI file from Scaler, and then as long as you split them into the correct chords, EZBass will be able to add those extensions and those parts to the rhythms. But when you use something like EZKeys, which I'm going to do a video on in the future, it's even easier. So I've just found, I haven't even changed anything here, but I've just found like a rhythm in here from the Classic Soul pack of chords If I quickly play through this. Brilliant. Okay, so what I can do with the EZKeys patch I've just made, I can just drag the whole thing in the same way that we did here, drums and keys. I can just drag that onto here and check this out. So if I just want to be having the bass notes as the rhythm, the lowest ones, I can drag the left side. Or if I want to use the whole rhythm of the chords, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because I'm only just putting it in here for what the chords are. So as you can see, straight away, that F sharp with a C sharp in the bass, like that's gone straight in there. So if I press play now, we've straight away got the bass line of that chord progression. But as always, I don't want that straight rhythm, so what I can now do is I go to grooves and I can replace the MIDI of that. And let's try something maybe, let's try something in the soul and R&B section. Let's pick this one, see what happens. Doesn't sound very good, but I can show you afterwards as well how we can fix that, because sometimes a note will be a bit wrong, but it's quite easy to fix that. Okay, this is a good example as well. So I like that sound, but I prefer a bass guitar to be muted, and I prefer maybe a few more percussive sounds. So once you've got a pattern that you like, you can then go to the edit play style, which is this one. You can either then take the whole thing up an octave or down an octave. You can bring the overall velocity down. I tend to use the damping feature a lot, which just basically allows you to make it like they're muting the strings a bit more. Very cool. And there's also this knob amount, which is great as well, because that you can either click on the whole thing and go up, and it will intelligently add notes. Like you can just fill up the space. So let's try adding +4 on the note. And it won't always add notes on the same spot. If you've got a pattern that's a bit more moving up and down. But let's take that back actually. Say I just want to add some, there's no note on this F sharp there. I can just bring up the amount and it will add in a couple of notes for me. And if I really wanted to, I could go in and say, well, that note that you just added, I'd like that actually, oh, I'm using the wrong tool. And in fact, let's make both of those percussive right hands. Can't really hear that, but yeah, you get the idea. If I replace the MIDI and do something maybe back in that Latin section where we've got a bit more upwards and downwards movement. If I bring up the amount, or I can also bring down the amount to like slim out a pattern. And this is quite cool as well if you lay things out in sections and say you can also then just right click and change the song part to intro. You can lay out your whole song in EZBass here corresponding to what you have in your arranger view, and then you could have a certain section be, you know, using the same notes. You could have that be the intro pattern, something quite simple, and then you could have your chorus section be totally different rhythms, or you could then also go in and this, oh yeah, this is quite a cool little thing. If I loop it on, if I just loop it on here, the way that the chord changing section comes up is using this circle of fifths. And what that basically means is any chord that you have, this is quite similar to mixed in key, you could just use the chord opposite as well. So this C sharp minor, let me find a pattern that's a bit more full. Let's pick this one. I could really just swap on the second half of this. I'm just going to take all of these chords and switch them to the other side. So we'll do a D sharp minor there, and then we'll do a B there, E, and then F sharp, and then a B. So you'll see that this is just like the relative chord, or I forget what the actual music theory term is for it, but I guess it's the parallel chord. And that's really cool when you mix them up as well. So say you keep that one as it was. In fact, I didn't like that B going up there. I like that going down to the G sharp minor again. But you can see here that if, let's flip that one as well. Actually, so let's sound it better like that. Super cool. You can add like little moments of more upbeat or little moments of more minor across a pattern. Yeah, I mean, another cool thing as well is, say in EZKeys, I'm going to go into more depth on this at a later date. But if I remove this and I just add a couple of chords, so let's bring these back to the beginning. If I say had a B and then this chord, we do a G sharp minor, and then this one will do a D sharp minor, and then this one we can do a B again. Let's add some ninths to some of those. No, not a 7, major 7. See what that sounds like. Okay, that will do. Say I've come up with that boring chord progression there. I can now go to the user preset library and then find, let's go to Latin, Cuban, or R&B. And let's just pick another rhythm to play over that. So I can just click this, and now I've got those chords, but with a different pattern. So very quickly, I've now got... And again, once I've then replaced that, I could go in to the drums and keys section, drag this on, drag that down here. Let's just loop it on that section. And again, we've got our plain rhythm. And if I then replace the MIDI with the groove section, and I just love this because, you know, I think when I try and make music, I obviously can play certain things on certain instruments, but what really excites me is the things that I can't do, and these plugins really just help me bridge the gap between what I want to achieve and what I don't necessarily have the technical ability to do. Now, this is all well and good, but what if you don't really like the sound of a bass guitar and you're like, oh, well, you know, I'm more into using like synth basses and stuff. Well, EZBass isn't just a bass guitar simulator, it's just a bassline creator. So I know here, I've come up with a little pattern. It's the thing I always use to demonstrate this kind of Chicago housey vibe. What if I want to have more like a kind of plucky synth bass playing that bass line rather than a bass guitar? So I know that with Scaler we're in A minor, and it's an A minor and then an F major. So I'm going to do it the old school way of just drawing in my chords. Which is what I tend to do rather than cutting them up and dragging them in when I use Scaler. But okay, so A minor, I'm just going to add a groove here, and I know this is quite short, it's probably just 1 bar, so I can cut that, get rid of that for a second. Okay, so we know that the chord changes there, I think. Do we change on the beat? Just a little bit before, so I can cut there. So I know it's an A minor, and then that's an F major, so I can just replace the chord, F. So now we have... and now let's replace the MIDI. Again, I'm going to use the Latin one, because I really like this pattern. I end up doing this all the time on loads of my tracks, but in fact, let's just copy this all across. Just so we got a slightly longer pattern. I'm going to J them. Okay. So let's replace the MIDI with this one, maybe. In fact, let's pick something with a little bit more. Okay, cool. Well, I know that with my kind of plucky house bass that I'm going to add, I don't want to have notes on the one. I'd rather there be space, and it'd be like... banana, banana. So you can do quite a lot of things in the editor. If I bring this up now... I mean, the editor is... I might have to do another video on this as well, because the editor is so fantastic. But up here you have this selection option, and you can select by resolution. I'm just going to select 1. So that basically is just going to pick all of the notes on the bar. I'm just going to delete them. And now we got... Very cool. But where EZBass gets really cool using Bitwig, and thank you to whoever it was who first told me that you could just put an instrument after Scaler in Bitwig. goddamn, I love Bitwig. I could now just take, let's get Trillion, for example, and we'll put that after EZBass. And EZBass then just functions quite the same as Scaler in that way, that if I find, let's go for clicky bass 1, big and clicky. If I have it after EZBass, EZBass will just send through its MIDI, and then you get... EZBass ends up making the notes quite low, so I would suggest you then go in and just pitch them up an octave. And the way I was doing this before somebody told me about that scalar thing was I was then like recording the MIDI out and then fixing things there. But the cool thing about this is it means that I can still do all of my variations in the pattern. So I could then go here and I could change, let's change that to a C. And we can do then a D minor there, and we'll do a C here and a D minor there. And we'll also change the rhythm of this section, and we'll go to the slightly more complex one. And then let's add one amount of notes. And then I'm also going to go in again and do my grid editor to select all of the 1 notes and just delete those. And now we have something that's really quite cool because I can still play it on my instrument, but... Oh, I've got to put the octave up 1. Yeah. Not sounding too great there on those notes, but again, that's what I was saying. You can go in and you can get as far as you can using these things, but if you really want to go in and edit things, you can. Oh, I think one of the reasons maybe why some of these notes go a bit weird is because obviously to have these different articulations, EZBass is probably sending key switches, which are when you record the MIDI out to another instrument, you get those key switches, but you can go to general settings up here. And, oh, I think I've turned it off. Yeah, when you route it to other software, by default this will be on. But you turn that off, then you don't end up getting those clicky pops, and it's just straight notes. You also have to enable MIDI out if you want to have it send to another channel. But, yeah, I mean, there are so many possibilities to use EZBass across a variety of styles. You can even then, say I want to have this really quite simple. I could go in here and I could remove some of those notes. I could make the notes longer. I could dampen them. I suppose the damping won't work, not on the instrument, but... And I could cut the end bit here and add some more complexity there. And if I go into that last section, I could take these and shift these up an octave. So what is that? That's a C. Let's put that to a C up here. Very cool. I mean, I just love EZBass. As I said at the beginning, I think the thing that really is great about these plugins is it just means that there are no barriers between you and what you want if you don't have the fingers or the know-how to do what you want. You can create some really great chord progressions with something like Scaler or EZKeys, but then bass lines are a really crucial part too. And the sign of a good bass line is it not just staying on one note and being the same rhythm every time. And things like EZBass just make it really, really easy to come up with something very cool and as complex as you want sounding, with a lot of modifying capabilities to make it exactly your own. There are a lot of other features in here as well that I'm not going to touch on in this video, such as the audio tracker of being able to record a bass guitar in and then have it basically figure out what you're playing and then apply it to EZBass. So as I was saying at the beginning, where I try and do some Latin bass lines and I end up with these notes ringing out and stuff, it's a great way for me to very quickly work out what notes I'm playing all across the bass neck and quickly convert them into MIDI. And this drums and key tracker as well, if you're using something like Superior Drummer or Easy Drummer, you can just drag in a drum pattern and it will... I don't use this as much, but it will be able to add notes either on the kick drum or the kick drum and the snare, or the kick drum and then it's like little percussive pops on the snare, or following the power hand like the hat. It really is brilliant. And then, of course, you have up here the option to change the bass that you're using. There's a vintage bass as well, which is an old Fender. And then there's different presets within that. Some of these are really great. I have it by default set to be the focused and warm. because it's just, it's the one which I like the sound of most. And there's quite a few little settings you can go in here, but not too many settings. And like I did in that video on Atlas and XO, EZBass does give you the option to send audio out to multiple outputs. Again, this is something which you set up in general. You can use multi-out here. And what that will do is, say I pick this focused and warm setting and I have my sub bass up. If I just put in a quick pattern here, for the sake of making it interesting, let's do something like that. You can see that when I open up this view, I already have it set up, but output 1 and 2 will be the main bass sound. So if I pick something that's really quite different, let's go for this distorted metal. When I then record out my part, I then have the option to have the clean of as well, which is just the DI signal. And then you also have the sub on a separate channel, which in this case doesn't seem to be working. Let's see. Yeah, for some reason the sub doesn't seem to be there. I think by default you should then have the mixed version on 3 and 4. Or maybe it's because I don't have... yeah, you need to have the sub up for it to work. So then you can see here that I've got my mixed signal. I've got just the DI signal, which is quite handy for if you then want to process it with your own amp stuff afterwards, and then just the sub. And these are quite cool to then be able to layer, because in this view, you could then say, okay, I've got this metal version, I've got this DI signal, maybe I want to use something like CL8 bass, get a bit of growl coming through there, and then you've got that sub that you can then mix in to add a bit more bass to it afterwards. So when CL8 bass decides to finally open, let's add a lot of growl to that. Let's bring that down. We've got the metal signal blended with our processed DI signal, and then the sub, which is really great as well. And then sometimes if I like to work with audio, as I've said in previous videos, so what I would do is I would then just pick EZBass, and then I would go to my chains, and I would set up one for the DI, the mixed, and whatever, and then I end up with just the most wonderful looking bass lines in audio form that I could not play, and I just don't have the pockets deep enough to keep paying session musicians to play sort of what I want, but not quite, and have to say like, yeah, I guess that's good enough. I really can get exactly what I want with EZBass. So yeah, I think that about covers everything I want to talk about today, and thanks for watching.